physical enhancement magic, which greatly increased his speed. In a swift movement, the master struck. Alec managed to block, but was thrown against the wall. Getting back on his feet, he began thinking about how to counter such strength. Then a smile appeared on his face. He remembered that he was no longer a court mage and no longer had to hold back. Transforming his wand into an energy sword, he charged forward with everything he had. Levier advanced as well, but was caught off guard by an electric discharge. Alec took advantage of the moment when his opponent was paralyzed to strike with his sword. The combo was perfect, yet still not enough to bring down the master. Excited, Levier activated his magic gauntlets, called Dragoneel. The battle intensified, and even with all of Alec's efforts, his blows had no effect. Worse still, the gauntlet's special ability slowly regenerated Levier's body. Alec tried everything to win, but nothing worked. In a brief lapse of his opponent's guard, he landed a direct hit to the abdomen. But even that wasn't enough. Exhausted and with his mana at its limit, he kept fighting until the very end before finally collapsing during his last attempt. Yorha rushed to help him. When Levier was about to say whether Alec had passed or not, Ornest appeared, commenting that it was impressive to see Alec push a former S-rank adventurer that far. After the duel, Levier acknowledged Alec's strength and talent, declaring that he deserved the adventurer's license. Later, in the guild hall, Ornest asked if Alec had faced many hardships while working at the court. Yorha replied that he had, but that it was a long story. At that moment, Misha rushed in, saying there was an emergency and calling for the guild master. Levier stood up and said he would handle it, asking only that no one touch the shelf of drinks while he was gone. Ornest went straight to the shelf and asked Yorha to tell him everything that had happened with Alec. As he listened, his expression turned to outrage. He was shocked to learn that Alec had worked as a sort of babysitter for the prince, forbidden to wield a sword, forced to carry equipment, organize items, and even prohibited from using flashy spells. Yorha agreed with his anger, saying she had also been furious when she found out, especially since the prince had the audacity to call Alec's support magic useless. Ornest was shocked, remembering that Alec hadn't even used support magic before. Yorha confirmed it, explaining that he had learned everything from scratch and that his defensive magic had become extremely powerful. Hearing that made Ornest even angrier. Alec, who had mastered several types of magic, had to learn an entirely new style just to please the spoiled Prince of Galdana, and even then, he was insulted and expelled under the excuse that he was no longer needed in the group. His rage was so great that he ended up crushing the bottle in his hand, breaking it without realizing it. At that moment, Alec woke up. Yorha, smiling with relief, told him that he had passed Levier's test and earned his adventurer's license. Alec was pleased now he could explore the dungeons together with his old group. However, Ornest interrupted, saying that would have to wait because there was something more important to do: get revenge on the Prince of Galdana's group. Alec asked him to calm down, saying it wasn't worth worrying so much about it. Ornest, still fuming, said that he had to fight back, that it was what common sense demanded. Alec replied that it might be his common sense, but not society's. Yorha reminded them that fights between groups were forbidden precisely because of that kind of thinking. Ornest then asked if she really accepted letting it go after seeing a comrade treated that way. Yorha was left speechless, but before she could respond, Alec stepped in, asking Ornest not to put their leader in trouble. He said he planned to make the most of his new life as an adventurer, and that alone would be enough payback for the prince. Ornest interpreted those words in his own way. He said that all they had to do was become the most powerful group in the world that way. The court would regret dismissing such a talented mage, and if the kingdom ever faced a crisis and came begging for help, they would simply say no. Alec thought the idea of becoming the strongest in the world was far more exciting than going back to serving as the prince's escort. Meanwhile, Levier was discussing a serious problem. He mentioned that when complications involve an S-rank group, the situation becomes a huge challenge for the entire guild. Then he asked Krista what had happened to her group, called Rechroma. The girl replied that they needed help urgently. Levier immediately issued an emergency call, announcing that Krista would need to form a team to rescue her comrades. The location was the 64th floor of the dungeon. known as the Tank Killer floor. Shortly after, Kraja went looking for Alec. She mentioned that a meeting was taking place and wanted to know why he hadn't shown up. Alec explained that only a rank adventurers from Fiesel had been summoned, and he was practically an outsider in the city. Kraja then used a healing spell to treat his wounds and said she didn't care what he had done, she wouldn't meddle, but she was willing to listen if he wanted to talk. Even so, Alec still had trouble relaxing. His time in the court had left him with the habit of always keeping his guard up around people, even knowing that the local adventurers were very different from Galdana's arrogant nobles. Kraja realized how hard those 4 years had been for him. With a gentle look, she approached and placed her hand on his head in a silent gesture of affection. Then Ornest came rushing in, announcing that they had received a rescue mission directly from the guild master. Yorha explained the details. The mission would take place in a dungeon where healing magic was blocked, only potions worked. Alec was surprised to hear that Kraja had agreed to participate in something so dangerous. She replied that, in fact, she had been against it, and that the absurd idea of challenging that dungeon had come from Ornest. Yorha mentioned that, given the characteristics of the floor's boss, it was certain they would have to rely on Alec's power. That's why the final decision about accepting the mission was up to him. Alec, even feeling a bit rusty, said he would accept. Ornest told them to leave as soon as possible, before Levier and the others went ahead without them. 2 groups would take part in the mission, one led by the guild master himself, and the other formed by their team. Kraja pointed out that, in practice, they had only been included as support. Alec believed that the real extra there was him, feeling like he didn't even deserve to be part of the team. But Ornest disagreed, saying that no one but Alec had the right to join their group after all. The most powerful group needed the most powerful mage. Yorha added that the guild master had only authorized their participation because Alec was with them. If it were just the 3 of them, Levier would never have allowed it. And with that, the group lasting period was complete once again. Standing before the entrance of the dungeon, they commented that the challenge they had faced in the capital during their academy days was nothing more than the prologue to the true legend they were about to write together. With confidence in their eyes, they declared that the world would soon know the group known as Lasting Period. They knew that if they tried to descend through the dungeon floors in the traditional way, there would be no hope of rescuing the Rechroma group. That's why Yorha intended to use a core obtained from a defeated boss. With that item, the group would be able to ignore all the intermediate floors and advance directly to the 64th floor. With the core provided by Crystal, they were determined to do everything possible to save the members of the Rechroma group. Since they would depend on Alec to face the boss of that floor, they decided to conserve his magic as much as possible, saving his strength for the most critical moment. Thus, they activated the core and entered the dungeon. As soon as they arrived, they were greeted by a horde of skeletons. Ornest dashed ahead, eliminating every enemy in his path. Alec was surprised to notice that even Ornest had obtained an artifact. Kraja explained that it was Armalsteka, a black spear, extremely durable and sharp, capable of piercing through anything. Despite being a simple artifact, it was perfect for the impulsive Ornest. Alec agreed and asked if he needed any help, but the boy confidently replied that he could handle all those skeletons by himself. Suddenly, Alec felt a presence behind him and reacted instantly, casting a shock spell. However, there was no one there. For a moment, he thought he had been mistaken, but then decided to strike forward, and the attack revealed the form of an invisible creature, the dreaded Grim Reaper. Seeing that, Ornest laughed and commented that he knew Alec was still in top form. Alec dodged an attack and countered, slicing the monster in half. At that moment, he realized that his companions already knew about the invisible enemy and had said nothing on purpose, just to test if he was still prepared for that mission. But there was no time to argue. Another wave of skeletons appeared. Yorha strengthened them with support magic, and everyone re-entered the battle. When they noticed that the creatures seemed endless, Alec ordered a retreat and then unleashed a powerful area lightning spell. Curious, Ornest asked why Alec kept using only lightning magic. Even against the guild master, when he used to command several elements, Alec briefly recalled his past and replied that he used that type of magic because it was the fastest to activate. He tried to change the subject, but Ornest insisted, wanting to know what he was hiding. Before Alec could answer, a tremor echoed from the depths of the floor, followed by a terrifying sound of destruction. It was clear that a boss was there. Yorha quickly cast strengthening spells, and Ornus charged forward at high speed, followed by the others. When they reached the end of the floor, they found a boy desperately fleeing from an earth dragon. The young man screamed for help, visibly panicked. As they watched, Ornus recognized the fugitive. It was Loki Silveria, a support mage known for his cleverness, and also for being the biggest trickster in the Rechroma group. Loki shouted that if he died there, he would haunt Ornus, whispering curses in his ear every night. Running in desperation, Loki tripped and fell, which made Alec worried. But Kraja simply said everything was under control. That was Loki's fighting style. In truth, it was a trap, and the dragon fell right into it. Kraja explained that Loki was an extremely calculating mage. Laughing, Loki mocked the monster for falling into something so obvious, but the dragon retaliated with a powerful spell, forcing Ornus to intervene. Alec and the others tried to fight it, but the creature ignored them, turning back to chase Loki. Trusting his speed, Ornus dashed beneath the dragon and threw Loki toward Kraja, clearing the battlefield to fight alongside the rest of the group. Kraja took Loki to safety, while Yorha asked Ornus to help her hold off the enemy until Alec was ready to deliver the final blow. Ornus engaged in battle, but was thrown to the ground. Before the dragon could strike him, Yorha raised a magical barrier to protect him. At that moment, Alec began to cast his spell. Several magic circles started glowing around the monster. Watching that, Loki commented that a mage capable of using 3 spells simultaneously was considered talented, and 5 made one a prodigy. But he was completely stunned to see Alec controlling 20 magic circles at once. Alec then activated the spell, and the dragon was hit by attacks coming from every direction. When Alec was about to increase the intensity, the monster managed to break free, preparing a counterattack. At that instant, Kraja launched a rain of magical arrows at it, and Yorha trapped it with binding magic. Alec took the opportunity and activated his 4 corners seal. Even so, the dragon resisted and struck back. Recalling his teacher's lessons, Alec murmured that he had learned a spell that only 2 people had affinity for: himself and his teacher, the very creator of the spell. As soon as the dragon launched its attack, Alec used reflection magic, sending all the destructive power back at the creature. Even so, the dragon survived, though severely wounded. Then Alec released the power of the seal he had prepared earlier, leaving the monster on the brink of death. To finish it off, Ornus charged forward and, with a precise strike of his spear, pierced the dragon's skull, splitting it in half. Yorha and Kraja ran to the group, celebrating the overwhelming victory. Loki approached, thanking them for the help, and, with a sly smile, mentioned that he already knew Alec, the court mage of Galdana, the same who had defeated the Hydra. Alec calmly replied that he was now just a former court mage. Loki was astonished, thinking it was an incredible waste. Alec said there was nothing to regret, but Loki clarified that he wasn't referring to him, he meant the court of Galdana, calling them fools for letting such a skilled mage go. Changing the subject, Loki asked for some potions, explaining that he had given all of his to the rest of the group, who were still fighting another boss on that floor, an extremely powerful creature. Everyone was shocked, and Yorha asked if the monster they had just defeated wasn't the boss. Loki confirmed it was, but explained that on that floor, there were 2 bosses. With a mischievous smile, Loki took Kraja's hand and explained that his role had been to lure away the less intelligent boss. Annoyed, Ornus threw a potion in his face, asking if that was enough. Yorha just sighed, commenting that the 2 of them always behaved like that whenever they reunited. Kraja told Loki to stop fooling around and share what he knew about the other boss. Loki then explained that the true boss was an undead, a knight wearing completely black armor. The interior of that armor, according to him, might be empty, which meant the enemy's body was the armor itself. Therefore, physical attacks would have no effect unless the goal was merely to buy time. He then handed Alec a magical artifact, a sword called Schwart, a legendary blade capable of splitting the sky and the earth. Ornus found it strange that he would offer something so valuable, but Loki explained that he was doing it because he wanted Alec to fight on the front lines, but without using magic. Kraja, confused, asked if he had lost his mind, since the boss was an undead being without a physical body. With a